Welcome to Burn the Rules with Chet Hirani. This podcast is for people who know leadership isn't about titles, noise, or ticking boxes. It's about how you think, how you show up, and how you perform when pressure is real. I'm Chet Hirani, and I work with leaders and high performers across business, sport, and life all over the world who want to take control of how they lead and perform. Not by copying someone else's rules, but by understanding themselves first. Every conversation here is grounded in experience, reflection, and practical insight. So if you're ready to question what leadership has been taught to be and decide what it means for you, you're in the right place. In this episode, I'm joined by Abdullah Abbas, who discovered a pressure moment that changed his approach when he saw giant businesses taking advantage of small businesses and being charged crazy commission rates. Abdullah is an ambitious entrepreneur, a visionary builder focused on creating innovative businesses like Helpy in Qatar. He blends strategic thinking with bold ideas, aiming for global expansion and strong impact. Passionate about branding, luxury experiences, and technology, he constantly refines concepts, partnerships, and opportunities to grow successful modern ventures. So let's get right into it. Hey, Abdullah, how you doing, man?
I'm fine, Chet. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing well. You know, in London here, you're in obviously sunny Middle East over there, right? So I'm always envious over the heat and the sun, you know. I sometimes, you know what, honestly feel that I get seasonal affective disorder. But the seasonal affective disorder is 365 days a year for me here when we're in London.
You just want to be into
I just need to be in heat, man, 24/7. And it's just like one of those things. I went away. I was in Doha for about a month or so. And then I came back and my wife actually like, everything all right with you? And I said, I'm missing the heat, man. The heat is so good. And she's like, but we missed you. I said, yeah, I know, but I kind of miss the heat too.
Well, you do need some bit. You do need some bit.
Well, yeah, of course. It is that too, man. It is that too. So thank you again for obviously being here as a guest on Burn the Rules, Lead from Within. We want to dive into exactly who you are, what you've been doing. I mean, you're doing some fantastic work in the Middle East. You're out there. You're obviously, you were once also a neighbor of mine as well, in which we happened to figure out over the short call that we had earlier on. So you kind of studied around the corner from literally a stone's throw away from where I live, which is such a small world in all honesty. But let's kick it off, right? What's been going on with you lately? What's been busy? Tell me, what's been happening with you?
So basically, I've just literally been obviously working on Helpy as much as I can to just spread the word and to get as big as possible. We're actually at the moment working on a plan to expand through the Gulf region and then potentially bring it to the UK. So I'm originally from the UK, born and raised, and I've had this idea where I wanted to basically create a platform for people where I could basically focus on the small businesses and obviously freelancers, because they don't really have a platform where they can provide services and benefit from it. Because, you know, most big tech companies, they take crazy commissions. So I've been working on Helpy and trying to grow as much as possible.
Wicked. So tell us a little bit more about Helpy, because you're very entrepreneurial driven from that perspective. Helpy sounds like a fantastic concept, especially when you've gone from understanding and knowing how like these giant businesses are taking advantage of like taking advantage of small businesses, in all honesty, right? From a commission perspective. So just in a nutshell, when you just mentioned Helpy, the first few companies that came to mind were things like Fiverr and Upwork. Yeah. So tell me, what is Helpy and what sets you apart from those?
So Helpy. I'm thinking about me because I'm fasting. So Helpy is a platform. So Helpy is a platform where we provide services such as if you're at home, you want a barber to come to your house, you want, for example, your car washed at home, you want a spa service, you could also book a freelancer, which is a graphic designer, which is digital, and everything within a click of a finger. And what makes us different from the other, obviously, companies that you mentioned is that we do not take commission whatsoever. So that's been the motto from the beginning till Helpy goes wherever it goes in the future. It will still be the same. We haven't changed the fact that taking commission, even if we do get big, even if we do get funding, the main goal is not to take commission from businesses or freelancers. The reason being is because as a freelancer, if I'm with another tech company, for example, and I'm being charged around 18 to 30%, and I'm
Mm,
obviously doing most of the hard work, and the company is just
mm,
going to take a big fat chunk from me, and I'm just basically left with 30% less than what I've worked for. So
mm.
we said, let's make a strategy where basically I can benefit as a company by taking 130 reals, which is around £26 per month, which is basically like a Netflix subscription.
Yeah, I was
26
going to
pounds
say
a month.
yes.
And at the same time, zero commission where the vendor can benefit also. So that makes me want to work with Helpy, and that makes me want to obviously provide my service on Helpy, other than basically just because most platforms, they have one big issue. It's where the vendors end up contacting the customers and then potentially speaking to them or working with them outside of the app. So we wanted to
Mm,
remove that whole idea of where, okay, I'm just a platform, I'm a big platform, I'm being used, and at the end of the day, the customer is just gonna end up speaking to them privately, you know? So
mm,
that's what makes us
mm.
different.
Wow. Wow. So I didn't realize that because you said even if you want like a barber or you want a spa service, so you're almost tailoring it to individual, real sort of individual needs,
Mhm.
almost drilling it down to everything because it is getting to that sort of stage, isn't it now, where
Of
some
course.
people just want the barber to come over, especially from a female perspective as well. They like getting their hair done, but they either go to a stylist or they want to come home. And it's grown in the male for men too, right? Especially like we like getting our hair cut almost like every 2 weeks or every week, right? Just getting a trim.
I'm every
And
two,
it's like,
three
well,
days. I have, I have,
every
I
two,
have,
three
I have crazy hormones.
well, so do I, to be honest, right? But I don't have that facial hair. I mean, I've got to shave every day, man.
Yeah.
Honestly, and it's annoying because obviously my wife doesn't like having the facial hair. I mean, I personally don't like it too. But
Mhm.
for me, but I get what you mean, though, right? It's we want to do these sort of things as on a regular basis, but. I don't know about you, but I get like lazy sometimes to think, I
Yeah.
need to go to the barbers. I need to drive to the barbers. And it's like when
Mhm.
you want to do it every week or every few days, it's like, why can't I just get somebody and like get them over to my place every so often? It's like when
Mhm.
you have cleaners in your home. Like we have cleaners come to our house and they come on a set day, set time, and
Of course,
that's
yeah.
it. Got no issues,
You can
with
also
that sort
order
of
maid
stuff. So.
service on Helpy.
But you got see, there you go,
Yeah.
maid service. Oh, you know what? Gosh, I need this
Too
app.
soon in the UK.
You yeah, you guys need to bring this out into the UK, honestly, man. But it's
Soon,
such a
soon.
it answers a lot of questions, and I know a lot of people might be watching and listening to this, thinking, you know what? Oh, that's just another sort of a luxury. But this is what I'm talking about. It's a
Mhm.
luxury that you can have, and a lot of
Mhm.
people turn around. Like, let me take this for example. My mum and dad, right? I come from an Indian background, and some people say Indians are tight. Yeah, when it comes to spending money. Okay,
Mhm.
now especially Gujaratis, and I'm Gujarati, so I can say that it's not a problem, right? But my dad sometimes like, oh, why do we need a cleaner? We can do it ourselves, right? Straight
Exactly.
away, because okay. But then I turn around, and I'm like going, can you afford it?
Mm.
Right. And I was like, yeah, we can, but why do we still need it? Why do I want to spend my money when I could do it myself? I was like, it's not the
Of
point.
course.
These are certain luxuries that you're allowed to have for yourself. You've worked
Mm.
hard all these years.
Of
Okay.
course.
Do you still want to do this for yourself, or do you want to still be like, if you love cleaning, by all means, go and do it. Right. And if
Mhm.
you really love cleaning, then I reckon he should just basically join Helpy app, right? And then go and do it at other people's houses. Okay.
Mhm.
But he's not like that. Okay. And it's that mentality to have, like, you can have these luxuries, and an app like yours, which I think answers all the questions as well. The fact that the commission is not being taken by yourselves and it all goes solely to 100% to the actual service provider. Okay, that is phenomenal, and I think a lot of people benefit from those sort of things, because I'm always like hesitant as well when I'm using services and apps, thinking, oh, how much commission are they going to take? Right? It's like,
Of
well, you know
course. Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Then they give a commission, I'll give a tip.
Mhm.
Okay, think, you know what? I want to give you that because you've done a great job, but I do
Of
understand
course.
what the commission basis is. But your mission is really, really good. And I kept repeating myself on this one based on that. But it really is the fact that you are helping so many people on this, right? It will help so many people because it will help people all over the world. Okay,
God
with this
willingly,
fact.
yes.
And I'm sure that's what your mission is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So everyone knows Helpy, but you're the CEO of Helpy. Yeah, you're the creator of it. Okay, you're the brains behind it. Obviously, you've got people who've got to help. You've got a great team as well that are with you. But with being a CEO for a startup company,
Mm-hmm.
now a lot of people don't hear this. They think that, oh yeah, being a CEO is just a title, but there's a
Mm-hmm. Of
demand. I'm sure there
course,
is.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
most
that you
definitely.
go through on daily basis. Tell us a little bit about this. What does your role demand of you on a day-to-day basis?
So obviously, as a CEO of Helpy, I couldn't be more honored, and it's something that I never take for granted, and
Mm,
obviously it's something where I've always dreamt of helping people and doing something that could benefit people. And
mm,
day to day, I don't really have a time where I'm working. It could be literally like even yesterday we was in a group chat, we were speaking until like 4 a.m. So like with how Helpy is structured, there isn't a really time frame. Like even with the employees that work with Helpy, they're so honestly, like before I interview anyone, I always ask them, how are you working as a team? Because for us, the most important thing is we're all one. Like even with my
mm.
employees, I don't treat them as if like they're my workers. We're all one team. So we joke around, and it's like a little family. So that's how I've taken that approach to be a CEO. And there isn't a time frame where I just sit down and say, oh, I'm just gonna work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and that's my day done. No one speaks to me after that.
Yeah.
No, my phone is literally constantly working. I literally yesterday we stayed up all night, working on a sticker that we're gonna have for vendors at shops, like a banner and a sticker. And it's something that's constant. And I really enjoy it because I've always been that person where I like to even work off what's it called schedule. So it's something I enjoy. At the same time, it's something that also you learn so much. Like I could be sitting down in the middle of the night and I can find out something that I would never have known because I would have just been operating from 9 to 6, you know?
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
it comes with a lot of perks. And obviously it does sometimes get overwhelming, but that's it's part of the lifestyle that you choose. And once you're into that, tech and business and entrepreneurial life, time is important. And also at the same time, your time is taken. So I have obviously my personal life and my business life, but sometimes it just clashes and it happens. So we
Yeah. I
can't
mean,
do nothing about
that
that.
it's true, but that's the whole emphasis of being a CEO and an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, of course.
You are going to work all the hours under the sun. Yeah.
Mhm.
But you may work 15, 16 hours a day or whatever like that, right? But you don't expect your workers to work that way, right? You expect
Of course.
them, but you look after them from that perspective as well. But when you do that, they will automatically put in the extra hours because they enjoy doing it. So you're collectively creating this whole family sort of culture where people are enjoying what they're doing, but you still are the leader of the pack, essentially. Yeah. And being the leader of
Mm,
the pack, they should never basically outwork you because you're basically rewarding it's your business. Right.
mhm.
Whereas when they do work and they are working on the performance element, you reward them in different ways.
Of course,
So
yeah.
that's really important, the way you've basically created this whole environment within the organization. So that's fantastic about Helpy, and the things that you've basically mentioned is some key points there. But Helpy is not just the only company that you've got going on, right? And you've got your sort of your hands in all these other fingers in all these different pies, as they say. But how long have you been an entrepreneur? What was before all of this all created?
So when I was 18, I was at university. I've always worked, like even as young. I've never seen it to be something that's embarrassing to work or wherever you are. I started working age 16. The markets that you have out next, near the house. I started working basically just helping pack before school, and then after
Yeah,
school helping him unpack. And I never found it embarrassing, to be honest. I've always loved to
wicked.
work. I've always loved to, help my parents out. And even though it was the case, my parents always told me just to focus on my studies. I've just
Yeah,
always liked, to be an entrepreneur and stuff like that. So when I was 18, I started my concierge. So I was going out, in Mayfair, in Knightsbridge, the high end areas to give out my business cards. And I was doing that whilst I was at uni. So that's how I started my whole business venture. And then obviously when my family moved out to Qatar, I started obviously doing business here. I was selling, snacks that were discontinued. And just from there, like step by step, I was learning. And, at university, they don't really teach you these things. You have to actually go through it in real life. So
Yeah.
when I went through in real life and I started to see, I was entering into businesses that I've never even knew nothing about. Like last year, and the year before, I entered into the coffee industry, like opening a coffee shop. And I've always wanted to, open a coffee shop slash restaurant. And it was so amazing because I learned so many different things. Like, with coffee, you have different coffee beans from different countries with different acidity, with different altitudes from this mountain. It gets quite complicated. And I never
Yeah.
knew nothing about it. So I
Yeah.
like to always educate myself in something I've never ever had experience in. So that's how my business virtual has always been. I've always been into like new things. And even if I do not know anything about it, I'm willing to learn so that I could perform at the maximum I can do.
Yeah, it's important. I remember when I started working, my first job was paper rounds, believe it or not, at the age of
Really?
14. Yeah,
That's
I was doing
crazy.
paper rounds, and I think that's where it all sort of triggered. I mean, I've always liked and loved to be involved with people. People are just fantastic. I think there's a science behind the human being. I mean, there is, we all know that, but there's more to it that so untapped, and it's just interesting to learn about them. But people is a great thing. But I remember when I was doing paper rounds, and it got to a point where I realized I got promoted within being a paper round. Now, bearing in mind, I was the only paper boy in the shop. Okay,
Mhm,
and I'm thinking, well, how's this? How does one get promoted here, right? And that's
mhm,
what I was thinking. What could I do to be better at 14?
mhm.
Yeah, just to think about that.
Amazing.
And then they said to me, so you know what, Chep, when we open the shop, when the papers come, why don't you organize all the papers in the shop, right? So when the customers come, they've got everything there, and then you can do your own paper round and you can go, and we'll give you extra for that. So it's extra responsibility. Now, I was getting paid good money back then, man, at the age of
Mhm.
14. Okay. And I was thinking to myself, I have got nothing to show for it now, bearing in mind, okay, but
Yeah, yeah.
I spent everything, okay, because I was living a life of luxury at the age of 14. But I see what you mean. Okay. And I've always been intrigued about working in markets, because we used to have this really famous market where I used to live in Wembley, called Wembley Market, near the old Wembley Stadium.
Yeah, yeah.
And oh man, would always want to go there. And I was always curious, like, how do these people do these? What do they do? All of
Mhm,
this sort of stuff, right? But those are things that have like sort of deteriorated now, those levels of markets going on. But it's such a nice, refreshing feeling, and to hear you say that you've always wanted to do it for people, but the the stepping stones that they take, and the fundamental thing that you mentioned was they don't teach any of this crap in school.
They don't. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't.
Okay. And that's the frustrating thing about it. Yeah, it's like, well, you've got, I remember there used to be a subject called business studies or something like that. But when
Yeah.
you look at these business studies, none of this sort of stuff. It was all about profit and loss charts and all that sort of stuff. It's like, hold on a minute. I don't need to know about this. I want to know I want to know what I need to learn to
Mhm.
before I get into that sort of before I get into that level, right? But they don't teach all that. But this is a really important thing, is the fact that we are here now doing things like this on a podcast. I want people to hear and watch you and take all this, like, you're born and brought up in the UK. Yes, your parents moved, but you've still had that mentality and what you've done, yeah, to
Mhm.
get there. What's probably been one of the biggest learning curves you've felt that you've learned, that you can like where you are now and then look back and think, you know what, right? I want what's one thing you would have learned from it all, and what's one thing you will never do?
So obviously, like you said, they don't teach you most of these things at school. And when I
Yeah.
was at university, I was always trying to find a way to understand, like, how is this going to benefit me in the business world? How am I going to
Mm,
use this, a fact or this, information to implement it into the business world? But and then something clicked. I said, let me actually start doing business, and then through the mistakes in business, which obviously they don't teach you at school or university, that was like the learning curve for me. So I was like, okay, this is for me not to do. And then
yeah.
when I go into my next business venture, XYZ was the mistakes that I done. Let me step away from those. That's what made me learn. And that's what made me be like, okay, I'm not going to do this again, just so that I don't fail and so that I have a more chance of succeeding. Because obviously business is a risk at the end of the day. It's
Mm,
either you make it or you break it. So I said at the end of
mm,
the day, what I learned from my past experience is something that's going to benefit me. So these mistakes that you do, people see them as, oh, you know what, like it was a loss. Actually, I don't find it as a loss. I find it as something which is so valuable. I find it more valuable than you making progress and not making any loss. Because if I'm not making any loss, that means there's something that's going to happen, which is going to probably break me in the near future. So I said, okay,
Mhm.
these mistakes are very valuable to me. So let me use them and implement them into my next business. So I find it as
Mm.
something that's very beneficial. Of
Yeah, you learn from your failures and you basically learn them all. So
course,
they're not
yeah.
failures, right? You learn from it all. So that's an interesting point when you've said this. So with that, what would you say is like a belief or a behavior or an expectation that you had to step away from in order for you not to basically move that going forward? Is there anything specific that you can share with us?
So, you know, when people say, oh, it might not work out, or someone's already doing this, or this is already in the market, or
Hmm.
this is one thing, like people's words is one of the major reasons why people don't enter business. You know, people say,
Love it.
oh, so if someone, say, for example, I'll give you an example now. I'm someone that opened a coffee shop and I took a massive loss. And then someone comes to me to ask for advice and they say to me, okay, Abdullah, like, what was your mistakes that you done? Or what do you feel like? You're like, no, I'm going to be like to him, oh, no, no, don't open a coffee shop. Okay, but that's going to make him step back now. You never know.
Mhm.
Maybe you failed, but that other person might not fail.
Yeah.
So I don't like to take I do take people's advice, but I don't like to take people's negative comments to anything because I find these comments which, you know, push you back and don't motivate you to enter the business. And that's why a lot of people just stay, you know, focused on a specific life with it, which is nothing wrong with it. But
Mm.
as an entrepreneur, if you want to be someone that wants to step out your comfort zone and enter the business world, you're going to have to take risks and you're going to have to make these mistakes. So for me, when someone says to me, someone's already doing this, okay, I can do it as well. If someone else is doing it, that means I can do it. If you say, oh, there's 1,000, for example, if I'm opening a coffee shop next to 1,000 coffee shops, everyone's like, there's one specific thing that like I'm gonna like just implement religion into it quickly. There's a saying for like everyone's wealth is written for them. You know,
Mm.
everyone's wealth is written for them. Like even if there's 1,000 coffee shops, someone might just randomly look at yours and just enter yours. So
Mm.
your wealth is written whether you like it or not. And I think it's very important that if anyone comes to me, asking me for advice, I say, go ahead. If you have an idea, implement it. If you really believe that this idea is going to come to life and you're going to make it successful, just go ahead. Don't look back. Just go forward.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's interesting. Look, everybody loves coffee. When I say everybody loves coffee, a lot of people love coffee and everybody wants to
Mm,
drink coffee, right? Or
mhm.
the people that like coffee. You can't get enough of a coffee shop, in all honesty. Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
I mean, this is a coffee shop, for example, but I love what you've basically turned around and said. Like, if somebody says no to you and you're not listening from the negative side of things, you're learning from what they're saying, but you're not taking that all on. You've almost rewritten your own rule that
Mhm,
you're never ever going to listen to the negative thoughts because that's just going to hold you back even more. You got to believe in what you want to do.
mhm.
Yeah. So I know, like when we were younger, for example, we always listened to our parents and did everything what our parents said because those were the only people around us that you'd listen to, right? You wouldn't listen to someone on the street. If they said something to you, we're like, hold on, no, my mom and dad didn't say that to me. So until they say it to me, then I'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right. But now we're obviously got wiser, more experienced, understand people a little bit more. You are always going to get the haters.
of course, yeah.
100%. Always going to get someone. And most of the time, you're going to get them. They're probably going to be within your own family or relative circle as well.
Unfortunately, sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Because we've all done it. There was a point for me where I started from my coaching business. Well, first of all, I started from a fitness industry. Yeah. So created an online fitness company. And then people were saying, oh, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do that? I was like, because I want to do it, right?
Mhm,
Why aren't you doing it? Okay, well, oh, I don't have the time. Oh, that's irrelevant of all of that sort of stuff. I want to do it, so let me go and do it. Oh, it's not going to work. It's going to fail. All this going to happen, right? You should go out and work full time. It's like, why the hell do I want to go and basically work for somebody else if I don't
mhm,
need to? Okay, which is not
mhm.
in my DNA, right? It's not. I don't want to go. I want to work from. I want to work for me, but also provide a service to make other people smile and make them happy.
Of
Yeah.
course.
Okay. I go. What better philosophy? What better mission is there? than that, right? Whereas if I go into work 9 to 5 every single day, and I did that, I was in corporate world for almost 20 years, yeah. But every time I went in there, I was miserable.
Mm.
I can't remember a moment in time where I enjoyed going in and walking through those doors. Yeah, because it was a case of I enjoyed more the walk to work, and then it got worse and worse as I was getting closer. Right. But as soon as I go into the door, it's like, oh man, it's going to be another day, isn't it? Like that. All that negative doubt is already thrown in. It's like, well,
Mm.
why am I allowing this to happen to me?
Yeah,
Okay. And then this is a message that I want to send out to people is that exactly what Abdullah said, it's that negative thoughts, right? You are allowing it to affect you. So work on it, and it's easy to work on it. There's not rocket science behind all of this to actually shift that mentality, rewire that way of thinking within yourself to say, well, I don't need to think about that person. I don't need to listen to what they're saying, because what they're saying is basically putting my mood down completely. I'm not feeling good about myself, and let me continue what I want to do.
of course.
Yeah. So that's such an important factor in what you said there. And I love the fact that when you've also mentioned how, like, we're going back to the coffee shop thing again, right?
Mm.
It's like there are so many out there, but in all honesty, and listen, if I do get a sponsorship from Costa Coffee or Starbucks or something like that, great. But in all honesty, I'm here to basically support the local coffee places. Yeah. Because you know
Yeah,
what?
of
It's
course.
nice. Those sort of things are nice. People are there doing a reason. There's a reason why Starbucks has done so well. There's a reason why Costa Coffee and all these massive places have done so well, right? Because of their backings that they've had and all this sort of stuff. And
Mm.
they've found this place at the right time and the right place, as they say. But you got to support the local businesses.
Mm.
I had the same thing when I then transitioned from the fitness side of things, which was coaching led, to actual more leadership related coaching. And then
Mm.
everyone's turning around saying to me, oh, you're just another coach, right? There's all these
Yeah.
millions of coaches out there, right? I said, it does not matter, right? There may be a million or so coaches out there, but there's how many billions of people are there in this world?
Mhm.
Okay. Everybody needs something. And I know for a fact that I relate to somebody. I may
Mm.
not relate to every single person out there, but I do relate to somebody. Okay.
Mhm.
So they will ask me for my help and advice, which obviously then has moved into other areas. But that's one thing I want to make sure that people understand in what we're going on about here is that do what you love, right? If it means that what you're figuring out and you're like, I don't love what I'm doing, then it might be time for you to change.
Yeah.
Okay. And change is okay. I know people are like, oh, but financially, I can't do this. I'm not saying quit your jobs and quit everything and start a business.
Mm.
What I'm trying to say is that you can still do that and work, and then you can transition yourself out of it.
Of
Okay. We've
course.
all done that. Okay.
Of
We've all
course. Of course.
basically do that. I mean, in certain scenarios, I was made redundant, but when I was made redundant, I chose not to go back into work because I thought that was my blessing. That was my calling, it's done.
Mm.
Third time being made redundant, I'm not going back again. Yeah. Okay. Something's told me that, you know what? No, check. This is your time. Do what you need to do. And then just focus on that way, putting all the naysayers behind and not listening to them at all. Yeah. So with that being said, a question that I always ask people is that what's one rule you've burned for yourself and realized you're now in control after burning it?
So one rule I'd say is that, when you do anything in your life, whether it's business, whether it's a decision, always, from my opinion, is just block your ears. Just block your ears. Because at the end of the day, you're the only person who understands what you want. No one
Mm,
has your self-conscious. No one knows what you're thinking except you. So whether
mm,
it goes bad or whether it goes well, at the end of the day, you'd know it's your own decision. However, if
yeah.
I was to take someone else's decision and it was bad, even if the intention was good, in the back of my mind, I'm gonna say it's all because of them. It's
Mm,
a common human thing. It's a human behavior. So it's something you can't change. At the end of the
mm,
day, I'm always gonna blame that person because of the decision that I made. So
mm,
I'd always say, make your own decision. At the end of the day, always be the one that puts the final word in. So that's my main rule: is that to always be the person that makes the final decision. Because if I do take someone else's decision and I don't like it, I'm gonna end up thinking about it for a very long time. That's one rule I'd
yeah.
definitely go
Nice,
by.
nice. So regain control, isn't it? Don't allow others to sort of control you when
Yeah.
you know you can take that control back and be the decision maker for yourself. I
Mm.
love that. That's such an important thing because a lot of times that we find that we're always listening to too many people. And when we
Mhm.
listen to too many people, we end up finding that oh, what am I doing? Start questioning
Yeah.
yourself. Start doubting, yo, I shouldn't have done this. I should have done this. Like, well, you shouldn't have listened in the first place, and you should have done what you thought and learned from it. And if it didn't work
Cool.
out, go back. Right? It's
Yeah, cool.
you're continuously learning from it all. So that's really, really important advice. And it's a great piece of advice also to the younger generation. Now, obviously, I'm a little bit older than you. You haven't got as much gray hair as I have. Okay.
I'm getting them. I'm
All
getting
right.
them.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, I can't even tell. I can't even see it, right? Okay. I mean, this, like, you can see a full set of gray here. It's not quite that
It
great.
looks good
But
though. I
yeah.
really like it actually. It looks good.
Oh, see, thank you. Thank you. See, somebody that really appreciates the gray hair I've got. I call it wisdom.
Of course, yeah, it is.
But
It is wisdom.
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. From a younger generation perspective, okay, these are important things to understand and know. Sometimes it's not about being an egotistical person to say, you know, I don't care what they're saying. I don't care. Listen, yeah,
Of course, yeah,
but
yeah.
you don't actually have to take on what they say. Yeah, you don't have to take on the full 100% of what they say either. You can
Mm,
break it all down into small percentages and turn around. You look, that made sense. That made sense. That didn't make sense. So I don't want to need to worry about that. But
mm.
let me look, take that one. And then after you've done and it's worked out, by all means, go to the person and say, do you remember that bit you told me? Right? Not everything, but that bit you told me. I took that on. Thank you.
Yeah, of course,
Changes
yeah.
the whole
That's
dynamics.
Of course, yeah. Like at the end of the day, it's not a bad thing to take advice. I
Mm,
actually like when someone gives me advice.
yeah.
However, like just going back briefly, it's like take like what you just said, you just broke it down so perfectly. I don't know how else I can explain it,
Mm,
but just take like the best things that you think in your mind sounds good and then implement it. So
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's you do have because obviously with the younger generation, they quite, most of them have this, I want to prove myself and I want to be the one that makes the final call. Yeah, of course, but you also need to take advice from the elders. Like this is something that's been from the start of time, from the start of
Yeah.
time until now. Someone that's older than you by a day is more knowledgeable than you by 1,000, So it's
Yeah.
it's a saying that really does make a difference. Like if I sit down with someone that's older than me and I take advice, they obviously won't know 100% how the certain generation is. For example, my generation. However, they do know that there's certain things that it's just basic human nature.
Yeah.
If I do know something for a younger person to ask me, and I know, you know what, don't do this because I made this mistake. It can benefit him. So I do also
Yeah.
think that with the younger generation, they should sit down and listen to the older generation, which is very important because when you don't, you do end up getting lost. Trust me, it's something that a lot of people do suffer from.
Yeah, it is. And it is experience as well, right? So you can't, if you want to start something or create anything or provide a service or anything, in your head, it could be the greatest idea and it could work for you. But for the people out there, it might look like, you know what, it could be the worst. They don't need to hear this. They don't want it. And then it sort of puts you down and think, well, I had the greatest idea and this happened. And this is one thing I always say is that ask people first. Yeah. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And be prepared for people to knock the idea. Be prepared because you're asking them for their opinion. And if they're not ready to give you opinion, fine, don't worry about it. But then there's so many other people, and then go and seek people that have got experience in those sort of areas and learn from them. Okay. You don't want them to say, don't do it. You want to learn from them. Say, what were your mistakes? What did you learn from it? Because I don't want to do it because I'm going to do this regardless, but I want to learn.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you create such a good, almost like a mental encyclopedia for yourself, that then you can just go away and sort of like, okay, this person said this. Okay, I enjoyed this. I like this. I'm going to take this on. This person said this. Maybe I shouldn't take this angle because I remember this person said this. And it's always surrounding yourself with people that you should be surrounded by, not who you think you should be surrounded by. Yeah.
Yeah, of
And
course.
there's such an important factor there. No, it's very good. So with this all being said, okay, you've obviously come under sort of immense types of pressure because when you go into these journeys of wanting to start something for your own, like start a business or go into a tech space, for example, or open up a shop or anything like that, pressure is always there.
Mhm,
Okay. And when I talk about pressure is always there, what I mean is that we don't create that pressure for ourselves. We've actually walked into that pressure because it's always there,
mhm,
right? You're not going to start a business or do something and think, oh, I've got no pressure. Yeah.
mhm. Of course, yeah,
you,
yeah.
you're putting that's part of the risk. Okay. When they say going into business is risky, yes, it's risky because you're actually going into this immense amount of pressure. But how you control yourself under that pressure is an important factor. And that's where a lot of success lies. And I don't think a lot of people actually explain that, to say how you can control yourself under pressure, which then allows you to control your teams and everything else around you too. Yeah.
Mhm.
So when pressure hits you, what do you what do you focus on to control these things first for yourself, would you say?
So whether I get pressured, stressed out, whatever it may be, any sort of emotion that I feel, I
Mm,
make sure I take it like I take it and I look at it
mm,
at like a bird's eye view. So
mm,
here's the situation now. Am I able to change it at the moment? If not, am I able to change it further down the line?
mm.
If not, if I can't do nothing about it and it's like it's done, it's done. So for example, I'll just give you a brief example. One of the employees ended up, God forbid, releasing the database, for example,
Oh
you know,
gosh. Right.
God
Yeah.
forbid. But just giving you an example, say, okay, I'm gonna look at at the moment. Okay,
Mm,
now the database is out there. Am I able to retrieve it? Am I able to do anything to save the database? If I
mm,
can't do anything about it, obviously I'm gonna think about it. However, but because how I am at the moment and how I've always perceived stress and pressure and everything,
mm,
I have like a saying, I just say throw it to the back. That's it. Because
mm, mm.
if sit down at the moment and I stress about it and I can't do anything to change it, there's
Mm.
no point of me stressing if you really truly think about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, stress is an important thing. Pressure, it does happen. You will always be pressured. Wherever you're entering a business, you know, if you're in a situation like this, for me, if I can't change it at the moment and if I can't do anything about it, I just say throw it to the back. That's it. And I just
Yeah.
go and move on to the next thing. I'll solve the solution, boom, on to the next. And that's it. I've had that motto since young, and like when I mention stress, a lot of people say to me, like, I don't come across a person that seems stressed because you will never see it
Mm,
onto me. Because I'm a very firm believer. If I show you my emotion of me being stressed, it's gonna click something into you where like, oh, he's stressed. Let me like, why is he stressed? You're gonna think about it, if you're someone that's close to me. So why should I put another person in that situation where I can just control it and not think about it and just throw it to the back? That's it. Because a lot of stress happens because of obviously, a person's situation where they overthink things. And it's something that's not, I feel like, really quite mentioned a lot because I know I'm quite drifting away from the pressure side because I'm just gonna like try to relate as much as possible
yeah, of
because
course. Yeah. Go for it.
it's something that does come with the pressure, because pressure
Mm,
ends up you becoming stressed. So it's an emotion. So for me, I feel like, when people overthink and they overstress things, it's something where you choose if I want to stay in this state or not. A lot of people say, I
mm,
can't handle it, I can't bear it. Okay, I understand you can't bear it. However, you have a subconscious where I think, today, okay, what made me angry? This is the thing that made me angry. This is the thing that made me happy. I chose to choose this emotion. So if
mm,
I sit down there and I say, you know what, I'm going to choose not to stress about it. It happened, just throw it to the back. It will change your perspective in life in many things. So
mm,
that's why I always, when entering a business, the pressure, I do feel it. However, I look at ways which I can prevent feeling that pressure. So putting it in a perspective, say pressure, oh, like my neighbor next to me is the same business. He's doing the same thing as me. Okay, I don't need to worry about him. What makes me
mm.
different? How am
Yeah.
I gonna take in a different step? Okay, he's known for, say, for example, his caramel lattes. Okay, I'm known for something else. It's
Mm,
you have to have something that stands you out as a person, as a business, for you to succeed. If you're just looking at another person's plate, you're always going to focus on what that person's doing. You're not going to focus on how am I going to push myself to go up? How am I going to push myself to be successful? You're always going to focus on the other person. So the way of pressure, for me, I always think about, doing what I know I'm best at and doing the best I can do and not worrying about the competition. Of course, competition is important. Don't think that you can just cancel it out. Okay, competition is important. There's always competition. However, what makes you stand out? Like these big tech apps like, Apple, Samsung, they've always had this rivalry. But what made Apple stand out the most?
yeah.
The
Yeah.
screens, the way the whole system works, everything's different. So
Yeah.
they focused on themselves. Samsung focused on themselves. Each one succeeded in their own way. For me, I always say like, any sort of pressure, just focus on yourself. And for me, pressure, I do feel pressure, but I try to minimize it, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, You'll always walk into that pressure. But I loved two things that you mentioned there. Going first of all, you said never to focus on somebody else's plate. Yeah,
Mm,
just look at it. Don't focus on it for too
mm.
long. Okay,
Yeah,
look at
of
it,
course.
observe it. Okay, why is my plate different? Okay, if you can
Mm,
answer that, best thing. If you can't answer that, go find the answer for it. Yeah, which is an
exactly.
important factor. And the other thing that you said at the beginning was how you look at things from a bird's eye view.
Mm,
Yeah. And that was really important because I say this a lot to a lot of people, especially when life and generally about
mm,
everything, is that if you were to just go all the way up and look at everything that you're doing from a bird's eye view, okay, you're going to find so much there, right? That you think, well, it's almost another example would be if somebody has an email inbox with about 200 to 300 or more emails in it. Yeah. And they haven't touched it for about a month or two. Okay. Those emails aren't important then, are they?
of course.
Yeah. So the same thing is that when you're looking at yourself from a bird's eye view and you're looking down, okay, and you're looking at everything called scattered round, you can actually see everything and think, okay, I haven't worried about this in such a long time, so it's not important. I can push this
Mm,
away. Right. And then you can really scale things down even more, then to just focus on what actually really does matter. And
mm,
as you're doing that, you relieve and releasing pressure. Yeah, you're releasing this stress, tension, and all these sort of things that are happening to you. And you feel so much better about yourself too, because then you'll also understand what you need to do and how you need to do certain things as well. Because you've got all this other stuff or crap, whatever you want to call it, right? It's just basically just pushed to the side that you no longer need. And the other side of it is you might find like pieces which are like turned not the right way around, so you can't see them. You turn them around like a piece of puzzle or something. You think, oh, that was that missing piece. And I couldn't find that because I had so many other things going around, which I didn't even need to worry about.
of course.
Yeah. So it's taking that moment.
I wanted to mention actually because there's something that I do obviously that links to this situation. So whenever my phone because obviously with Helpy and everything else and just my personal life, social media and whatnot, it does get sometimes packed with messages with this that. One habit I have which does help me a lot. And
Hmm.
some people say to me, "Oh, why do you do it? Oh, maybe there was something important in the chat on for." I always refresh my chats. So like I go through my chats. I say, is this important? Okay, have I answered to this person?
Mm.
So I go all the way, swipe all the way down. I say, okay, this person, have I replied to them? This okay, but I can delete the chat now because it
Yeah.
keeps you in the loop. At the same time, like I won't have a million messages where I just don't even want to go on my phone anymore. I just don't even want to go on WhatsApp anymore. So
Yeah.
one thing I tend to do a lot is clearing chats, removing them so I can see not just chats, even with my, photos. Sometimes, you screenshot something. Okay, I've finished from it. Now I can delete it, I just
Hmm.
always like to refresh my phone so that I can know, okay, what am I doing at the moment? This is amazing. Not obviously erasing memories. That's
Hmm.
very important.
Yeah.
Just like chats and, stuff that are not necessary for me that I've already finished and completed. So I can
Yeah.
just, reply to people easier because sometimes I do, get a lot of messages where I have to like go through them one by one and then reply and then delete, reply and then delete. So I feel
Yeah.
like it's also that's a one trick that I also have, so that keeps me in the loop.
Yeah. No, I love that. Abdullah, yeah, you are a busy man. I mean, even me messaging
Mm.
you, I don't get a message back after a few days.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm
No, I'm
trying
just
my
kidding.
best. I'm trying my best.
We got here in the it's not that we got here in the end. I mean, we already had this planned anyway. It was
Yeah, yeah.
just a few little things here, but hey, look, it happens. It actually does
Mm.
happen. You can't, although what we're talking about, we're like painting a real perfect picture. There are things though you have to do in order for these to actually work for you, you
Of
know?
course, yeah.
When you're in an environment like this, yes, you are going to basically have lots of emails. You're going to have people who are going to find your email and try and sell you services. You're going to have people who are
Uh,
going to get your number and start messaging you and thinking, "Who is this? You know, this
mm,
person's not on my contact list." If they've even written a name or introduced themselves, it helps. But they just want to sell.
yeah,
You're going to get all these sort of things, right? But you have to manage it. And if you can't manage
mm,
it, then you're going to basically fall into this huge, huge pile of, I don't know, it's almost like going into a dumpster or like a recycling center, right? Where you just
yeah, of
can't
course.
find you can't find anything after that. Okay.
Mhm.
So you really need to sort of manage that as well. But while managing that, you automatically then also start managing other people's expectations as well. Because if you're one to like, now I'm pretty, I know, personally speaking, when someone messages me or I get anything, I respond quite quickly. So my response rate is quite fast. Yeah. But that's just me, the way I am. Okay.
Mm,
But there are moments where I get inundated with messages where I basically have to then keep them marked as unread. And these are
mm,
WhatsApp messages initially. So I filter everything. So I put everything as
mm,
unread. And then I will eventually, within a day or so, I'll go to them, or I will see who it is and say, is this important? If it's important, then they get a response. If it's not, it'll be unread, because then I will go and respond to them. Right.
mhm.
So I have to manage that expectation, which by managing that expectation, I'm managing myself too and keeping myself in control. Otherwise, I'd go crazy,
Of
just
course, yeah, yeah,
continuously messaging everything. And then everyone's like, why are you always on your phone? You always get that, right? Okay.
yeah.
But sometimes you have to be. But that's really good. No, thank you for that. So I want to touch on a little bit just about yourself, right? We talked a lot about expectations, how you control pressure, entrepreneurial world, but you as a leader internally as well, okay? What would you say you've learned about yourself that changed how you lead others?
So, as being a CEO, I learned many things. I learned, how to deal with people, and I changed my main approach, as as the typical CEO, where
Yeah.
you don't really engage with the employees. You just come
Mm,
in for your work, and obviously when something's needed, you have someone from the team that just gives you basically a whole weeks worth of feedback or stuff
mm,
that needs to be done and tasks and stuff like that. My approach is quite different. My approach as a CEO is someone that's always going to be there, always the first person there.
mm.
I don't tend to see it mostly with majority of CEOs, because when you're seen as a CEO, it's like, oh, this guy is up here. Like, it's very hard to get to him. No, for me, it's different. I just
Yeah.
like to be, a hands-on person. Even just like, like for example, just this decorating the office. When we got the decoration for me and the team, we was doing it together. Sometimes I do come by myself and I do bits and bobs. It's always been a thing where I want to be there, and it's not hard to get to me.
Yeah.
With my employees, we joke around. They always like, I've had like, but this is obviously, something that I've always been happy to hear. Like, I've had people come to me say, "Look, you've been the best CEO." And this is not me just trying to brag or anything. This is obviously, something I've always been happy to hear. And I've always wanted
Mm,
to, be that person that can help you, and that can, even like when I've had employees leave, I've always said to them, like, honestly, if there's anything that you feel like, that what hasn't been said or something, and they've always said to me, no, like, you've always been that person where you listen, you even like, I don't want to get into too much personal things, but I always like to listen. I've had,
yeah.
many employees where they've sat down to me, they've had even like, you know, just a normal human interaction where they can express themselves. Some
Yeah.
people even, sometimes with work, it does get overwhelming. And some people, they can't handle the pressure sometimes. So they need to relieve it. So I always say to them, if you have anything, even if it's outside of work, you can always feel free to drop me a message. And if I'm available, I'll definitely, speak to you about it. So my approach as being a CEO is like being hands-on, always being there, and not the typical CEO. Quite a fun
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you on that. It's valuable, listening, because it's something that not many people know how to do, because it's an art.
Mm,
And when I say it's an art, people think that they listen, but really they're not.
mm,
And when you sort of when you sort of highlight these things in people, they start realizing, think, oh, actually, I'm not. I want to actually learn how to actually listen, because listening isn't just by listening um, via your ears. Okay, you're listening through so many different areas. For your eyes, you're looking at um, their behavior, their tone. There's lots of underlining things that you've got to focus on, and it's an art that not many people. And I think there's a crazy stat that only like 5% are actually good active listeners or know how to active
that's
listen.
crazy.
And it's not something that is something that you can become good at, but some people have just got active, just naturally have got it. Yeah. And they know
Mm.
how to do it. Yeah. And I'm not going to brag, but I'm a good active listener. So I'm going to say that too. So I'm going to be
I
in
can
that top
tell.
5%.
I can tell.
So, with that being said, I mean, I like the fact that what you mentioned, that had things that you change about yourself. But how do you reset when you find that things aren't off? When you find things are off, there's always something that you need to sort of recalibrate about yourself, or whether it's within work or in those sort of scenarios. How do you do that? so other people can actually understand and know that, oh, I've gone through that, so maybe I'm going to try that. So what do you do to reset yourself?
So obviously I sit down on myself. I like to write a lot. If I have anything in my mind, I like to write it. It's the typical old school type of, clearing your mind. I feel like it helps a lot because it could be anything that you write and it could literally relieve some of what you're thinking, basically. Like if I have something in mind where I feel like I'm doing wrong, I just want to write, this person is saying to me that, okay, maybe I don't obviously take advice too much. Just giving
Mm,
an example. If I write it down and then when I see that constantly, it's gonna
mm,
remind me, be like, oh, okay, I need to change this. Because people think, like changing is a bad thing. Be like, oh, I'm
mm,
just myself. If people don't accept me, they don't accept me. No, but like, you need to understand there's some things or some bad habits that a person has that do need to be changed. I'm not a perfect person. I do have obviously habits that I do that some people don't like. But it
mm.
doesn't mean I'm arrogant. I'm going to say to myself, okay, you know what? Screw this person. I'm going to be who I am. I'm not going to change.
True.
Change is good, but not changing your whole personality because that's when you
Yes.
become a whole different person. People, get that mixed up. If I change my whole personality and the person I am, you're going to be not the person that you was originally.
True.
There's some habits that people have or some, things that we do. People don't see that it's right. So it's nothing wrong with change. However, don't change yourself completely because that's when you become a
Yeah.
whole different person. You
Yeah.
live a life which is not yours. You become a fake person. So I think change is very important. And for me, I always like to listen. Sometimes I don't show the person that, okay, it's something I'm doing wrong. I let my actions prove,
Mm.
that this person's actually changed. I'm not going to say to him, okay, look, I've changed now. What do you think?
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yeah.
by your actions, it plays a big role in, proving your point.
Yeah, no, I love that. That nicely leads on to my next question then. What advice
Mm.
do you not give anyone? Sorry, let me start again. What advice do you not give anymore because it doesn't work for you?
It doesn't work for myself.
Yeah, or hasn't worked. Maybe it can be for yourself or anybody.
I'm gonna like say a bit of a personal story. I had
Yeah.
a basically a cousin of mine who had a habit, and I didn't really like it. I took the wrong approach of saying, "Oh, stop doing this," or "Why do you keep doing this?"
Yeah.
I kept stating the wrongdoing. Basically, I kept
Okay.
stating it, but then
Yeah.
I didn't see a change.
Mm.
Sometimes silence and sometimes your actions play much more than your words.
Mm.
I feel like when someone is just telling you, "Stop! You're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong." You're gonna just keep a repetition. Like, every time they see you, they won't do it, but behind your
Yeah.
back, they might do it. You
Yeah.
understand? Because they know, oh, this person's just gonna keep bragging and bragging and bragging in my ear. So I said, you know what, like, let me just stay silent. Let me not say anything because I tried so many years of just advising, saying, oh, you keep doing this wrong. Stop doing this. Stop doing it. But me saying to him, stop, didn't make a difference. So when I stayed silent and when they saw through my actions, oh, you know what, like this, what I'm doing is actually wrong, it completely changed. And I was surprised. I was like, what if I just had stayed silent from the beginning? Sometimes your
Yeah.
silence plays a very big role in someone's actions. So I feel like that's very important also.
It's interesting you said that. I was just listening to or just replaying back. Remember when we were kids and you did something wrong and then your mum
Yeah.
told you off and she was silent, or your dad told you off and they were silent?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, oh gosh. Yeah.
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 It's
So it's
coming now.
exactly, exactly. It's powerful, isn't it? Silence is powerful, right? And it's
Very.
loud as well. Silence can be very loud and sends the right message. Definitely is a great sort of tool to have in your back pocket and to sort of do that, especially in circumstances like you said. But that's great. So what's one move based on that? What would you say could you give is like one move the listeners and the people here can make this week, adjustment that they can make this week based on everything that we've said so far?
So for everyone that's listening, whether young, old, any nationality, any race, any age, any gender, anyone that's watching, my advice is if you have an ambition or you
Mm,
have a talent or if you have, you know, idea, don't put it to waste. Like, don't make sure you implement. Like, if you have a talent, make sure you work on it because it's something that's given to you and that's something, if it's thrown away, it's a waste of talent. If you have an
yeah.
amazing idea, whether it's to open a business, whether it's, to get closer with your parents, whatever it may be, make sure you implement the idea. Like, take the step that no one tells you to be careful, or this person tells you, oh no, don't do this and stay back, or it's gonna hurt you. Or it's always take that step, because if you didn't take that step, you're not gonna get anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not gonna push you forward, and it's not gonna give you that boost that you needed. That big step makes such a big difference. It makes everything else easier. People are scared of taking that leap, but that leap is where it gets you. It opens many doors. And when I took that leap, it opened for me many doors. I met so much new people. I made so much new connections. I opened so many different businesses, some which have failed, and I've always not been embarrassed to say it. And if I did not take that leap, I wouldn't be where I am today. And I'm still ambitious to work harder and become better. I don't see myself as, this crazy successful guy. There's always room for improvement. So
Yeah.
my advice is take that step and always be the one that makes the decision.
Implement it, don't
Yeah.
regret it, and live a life of regret. Oh, no, I love that. Right. So before we wrap up, it's going to play a quick game. Okay.
Okay.
It's called 10 and Done. All right. So the idea is it'll be 10 questions, short answers, no thinking. Okay. So
Okay,
whatever
straight.
comes to mind straight away.
So do you want
okay?
one word, or do you want like an actual answer?
Let's see how we go. Let's see how we go. It don't have to be a long-winded answer, right? So we'll just
All right.
kick this off straight away. Yeah. So question 1, what's your most used phrase at work?
Good.
What's a habit you've kept for years?
Shaking my leg. Like, the leg shake? I've had that also so long.
What's one thing you're irrationally strict about?
Morals.
What's your go-to reset after a long day?
By the beach.
See, again, right? It's just probably a stone's throw away for you, right? Okay. What's a book you've gifted more than once?
Book. The Quran.
Nice. What's a tool or app you'd hate to lose?
I'd hate to lose. I think WhatsApp.
A lot of people are
Very
saying
cool.
WhatsApp. What's your most underrated skill?
Underrated. I'm good with accents.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, it's
Go on, give us
underrated
an
because not a lot of
accent.
people know it. Well, which accent? Give me an accent.
Oh gosh, what are you famous for? Come on.
Many accents. I'm being serious. Like, I'm quite good at accents.
Seriously. All right, let's think about Barack Obama.
Accents as in like countries. Sorry, my bad.
Okay, okay.
I do know some people like accents as in like Donald Trump and for example the Joker. I can do some like Elmo as well, Kermit the Frog, but like
Oh,
I'm good with
really?
countries. My countries is my man.
Countries. Oh my gosh. Oh gosh. Countries. Sweden.
Sweden. Okay, you probably the I've never tried a Sweden accent, but I'm imagining they talk like Zlatan Ibrahimovic. He talks
There you go.
quite
He's Swedish.
slow and Sweden, something like that. Like, I'll give you an example, like Australian. Like, I can talk Australian, like Aussie accent.
Oh yeah, that's not bad, Australia. That's brilliant.
But
That's
I'm
really
quite
good.
good with the Aussie accent. And if
Oh
you want me to
wow.
change like to Russian, I can change it to Russian. It's no problem.
Oh, see, brilliant. Okay, I've even lost the question that I was on now. Okay, well, what's something people often get wrong about you?
Oof, they get wrong. I'm arrogant.
What's a small luxury you never skip?
Small luxury I never skip. Waking up.
Really, that's powerful. And what's one thing you're looking forward to in the next 90 days?
Oh, crazy. LP expanding, hopefully.
Yeah.
In the Gulf region. Yeah, that's something that's within actually the 90 days that you've mentioned. I'm looking forward to that actually.
Oh, see, that'd be interesting. We're going to basically, I would love to sort of hear about the expansions and all that sort of stuff, and then hear about all of those sort of things. So, no, really, really good. Right. So, I loved everything that we said. Okay. Where can people find you and connect with you, Abdullah?
So obviously I'm on LinkedIn
Mhm.
and also I'm on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. And those are the main three actually. They can find me on by an ABINE live. And that's more of like I clash the business side and the fun side of life. So it's not mainly just corporate things. I do mix and match. So yeah, that's where they can find me.
Yeah. I'm telling you, his stories and everything are really funny as well. Okay. So you would never think that this guy is basically an entrepreneur, CEO of multi companies, doing everything that he's doing, and then he's basically just busting the jokes on the on social media, which is brilliant, honestly. So I'll put all those links on the show notes here as well. Okay. And
Mhm.
one last thing, what's one thing you want people to take away from this episode?
So one thing I'd like everyone to take from this episode, obviously, is to make an impact in your life. When we leave this life, you're either known in a good way or you're either known in a bad way. So one thing for me is that you make an impact in your life where it could be such a small action you do to a person, which they would never forget, and they would always bring that good word upon you. So it's to have a good impact in this life, whether it's helping people, whether it's making a successful business, whether it's even working on your talent. It could be so many different things. It's just making an impact. And that's why I always, believe that, if you make an impact in this life, you'll always be spoken about eternally.
Yeah, and it's true. Just to repeat that, it says make an impact in this life, which is also your life. So don't hold back, make that decision. If you're thinking about something, go ahead and just make the impact, implement it. Or if you don't know how to implement it, reach out to people that actually know or have done something quite similar to get that advice and learn from them as well. So make that impact that you can actually do. So wicked. Thank you so much, Abdullah, for being part of the show
Likewise,
here. We've
Chet.
had a
It
really,
was
really good
amazing.
time. Thanks a lot for that, man.
Thank you so much. I'm lost with words. Thank you so much. I felt like I didn't even feel like we was recording. It was such an amazing, podcast, and I hopefully would love to come again, in the near future.
100%. You will be definitely coming back soon. Yeah? So thanks a lot. And that's a wrap.
Thank you so much, Chet.
Before you go, take a moment to think about what stayed with you from this conversation. Not what sounded impressive, but what challenged how you think, decide, or lead. See, leadership isn't something you wait for. It's something you practice internally, daily, and deliberately. And remember this, you can't lead a life that matters by following rules that don't. If this episode gave you perspective, share it with someone who's ready to take more control of how they lead and perform. And subscribe wherever you listen and keep redefining leadership on your own terms.